He was convincing me that a quiet and submissive wife was the ideal. He banned my friends, my job, even my social media. His mother used to say I should serve my husband, and his friends would laugh, calling me his house slave. I was losing myself day after day, until one day he raised his hand against me. I said nothing. The second time, nothing again. But when he struck me for the third time, I decided that this time, it would be him who stayed silent. I set up a camera. And when he pleaded in court to drop the charges, I simply pressed play. My name is Mia, and if someone had told me back then that my marriage would turn into a cage, I wouldn't have believed them. When I met Veer, I was 26, working at a cafe near the university, freelancing as a designer, and dreaming of my own life, full of light, travel, and freedom. He appeared like a hero from a romantic film, confident, a few years older, always in a business suit, with that smile that took your breath away. On our first dates, he behaved perfectly. He opened doors, brought flowers, and said, "I just want you to feel safe. I'll take care of you, Mia." Back then, it sounded like care. Now I know it was control, beautifully wrapped in love. When I first met his parents, they looked at me as if they were assessing a commodity, not a person. His mother, Mrs. Sandra, immediately stated, "My husband and I are glad Veer has finally chosen a serious girl. In our family, tradition is paramount. The husband is the head, the wife must obey him. We don't like modern, independent women." I only smiled awkwardly. I wanted to please them. I wanted them to accept me. And Veer just gently put his arm around my shoulder and whispered, "Don't worry, they're just old-fashioned. But they have a point, a real woman should be calm, domestic. No need for all that feminist nonsense." He said it softly, with a smile, as if joking. But every word left a mark. After the wedding, he suggested I take a little break from work because a husband is supposed to provide for his family. I agreed. It felt like a step into adult life. Gradually, I stopped seeing my friends. He was jealous. "Why do you need those girls? They're single and you don't need their advice." I even deleted Instagram because he didn't like when others liked my photos. At first, I laughed. "Are you jealous?" And he would seriously reply, "I just don't want other men to think they can look at you." A few months passed, and I realized my entire life had narrowed down to the walls of our house. I woke up early, made breakfast, cleaned, and waited for him to return from work. When he walked in, I met him with a smile, even if all day I just wanted to cry. He called me his quiet Mia, and it seemed that was exactly how he wanted to see me. Quiet. Convenient. Invisible. A year went by. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw some exhausted, unfamiliar woman with a dull gaze and hair pulled back in a messy bun. I used to love bright dresses, red lipstick, and laughing with my friends. Now it was an old robe, silence, and the anticipation of the sound of a key in the door. Every morning I made Veer's coffee just the way he liked it, no sugar, with a drop of milk. And every time he found something to complain about. Wrong again. "Will you ever learn to do things properly?" He didn't yell, he spoke in a tone that made you want to disappear. And every time I apologized. "I'm sorry, I'll try harder." He taught me to apologize even when there was nothing to apologize for. Once I said I wanted to go back to work. Just hinted at it. He put the newspaper down and calmly replied, "And why? Am I not providing for you? You need to be at home, Mia. That's your place." You can't imagine how awkward it is when my friends hear my wife is running around offices somewhere. That's not how we do things. And his friends truly never failed to emphasize this. When they came over, they said things that made me lower my eyes. "Oh, your Mia is perfect. Not like these modern ones who argue and want a career. Yes, Veer, you found a real treasure. Look, she's even silent when the men are talking." Everyone laughed. And I smiled along with them, even though something was breaking inside me. His mother came over occasionally, not to help, but to give advice a woman must endure, my dear. "You see, he has a hard job. If he's irritated sometimes, it's not against you. Don't argue with him. When a man is angry, just be quiet. That's how wise women save their families." And I was silent. Silent when he scolded me over trifles. Silent when he forbade me from going out without him. Silent while I ironed his shirts, and he wouldn't even look me in the eye. Once, I went to the store without permission. I just wanted to walk alone. He called when I was at the checkout. His voice was calm, but there was something icy in it. "Where are you?" "At the store, just for a minute." "You know I don't like you going out alone. Come home." I came home. And for the first time, I felt it. I was no longer a person. I was property. He didn't like it when I cried. He would say, "Don't start these hysterics. You're just ungrateful. Look how others live. I dressed you, provided for you, gave you a home." But that house was cold, even though it was summer. Cold from his silence, from his gaze, from my fear. One day, an old friend, Sophie, texted me, "Mia, where did you disappear to? We're all worried. Are you okay?" I didn't know how to answer. I no longer knew who I was. That evening, it all started with a trifle. I was a little late with dinner. I just didn't make it on time because the washing machine broke and I tried to fix it myself so as not to bother Veer. When he walked in, the house smelled of fried meat and fresh bread. I tried so hard to make everything perfect. But the clock showed 7:15. 15 minutes, and my world collapsed. He stood in the doorway, clenching his jaw. "Why isn't dinner ready?" I tried, I just didn't make it." "You sit at home all day, Mia. One job, and you can't even do that on time." I was silent. My heart was pounding in my throat. He came closer, and I smelled alcohol. He must have had a drink after work. "I'm trying," I whispered. "You're useless." His voice became quieter, but even more terrifying. He didn't swing hard. At first, I didn't even understand what happened. Just a sharp sound. Pain. And emptiness. My face was burning, my cheek was throbbing, and only one thought was spinning in my head. It was an accident. He didn't mean to. He just snapped. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood, looking at the floor, and heard him breathing heavily, almost animalistically. Then he sighed, took my hand, and said, "Don't make me do that again." "You know I didn't mean to." He went to the bedroom. And I stood in the kitchen, amidst the smell of cooled food, whispering to myself, "It's my fault. I shouldn't have argued. I should have been quiet." The next morning, he brought flowers. Large, white lilies, the ones I used to love. "Mia, I'm sorry. I'm overtired. Work is stressful. You know how much I love you, right?" I nodded. Because it was easier that way. That day, I put away all the mirrors in the apartment, except for the one in the bathroom. I couldn't look at myself. I looked like a stranger. Like a woman from the news who says, she endured everything until it was too late. I thought, if I am even calmer, even more submissive, everything will work out. But with each passing day, his words grew harsher, his gaze colder, his touches heavier. And when it happened a second time, I wasn't even surprised. We were having dinner. I said something wrong, something small, about his job. He grabbed the plate and threw it against the wall. Then he grabbed my arm. Pain, fear, a scream. "You provoke me, Mia. You just don't understand that a woman has to know her place." I no longer justified myself. I didn't beg. I just sat on the floor, hugging my knees, and a quiet thought was born in my head. If I stay silent now, he'll break me. And if I say something, he'll break me harder. And that night, I thought for the first time that I had to get out, no matter what. But back then, I didn't know yet that the path to freedom would begin not with an escape, but with a camera. A few weeks passed after the second strike. He acted as if nothing had happened. He bought flowers, put his hand on my back in front of acquaintances, and called me darling. But at home, his darling turned into a maid who had to be silent and not ask questions. And then came the evening I will remember forever, the evening of his 30th birthday. A party I organized, decorations, food, music, gifts. I prepared everything for several days, hoping that maybe he would see I was trying. Maybe this time he would be kinder. His friends arrived loud, self-assured men who joked about everything. His parents sat at the table, and his mother immediately began to manage Mia. "Don't place the plates so close. It's not a restaurant. but at least make it look decent. I was silent. I smiled. My heart was beating faster, but I still believed this evening would pass without humiliation. After a few drinks, Veer laughed and raised a toast to real women. To those who know how to be quiet when they need to be. Everyone laughed. Someone jokingly pointed at me. See, your Mia knows her place. The perfect wife. I felt the blood rush to my face. I was scorched by shame, pain, helplessness. And he only winked at me, as if saying, you know it's just jokes. But not for me. Not when everyone was laughing at my humiliation. Veer's mother added, I've always said that a good wife is silence in the home. Not these ones who argue and meddle in men's business. Our Veer has a golden woman, quiet, obedient. Yes, Mom, he replied, not taking his eyes off me, and I'll do everything to keep her that way. His friends roared with laughter. One even threw in, don't get complacent, Veer, or she'll start demanding rights like those bloggers. Then you'll be sitting without dinner. Laughter, glasses clinking, jokes. And I among them like a prop. When everyone left, I stood in the kitchen, washing dishes, and my hands were shaking so much that the plates slipped from my fingers. He came up behind me, put his hands on my shoulders. I flinched. You were wonderful tonight, he whispered. Quiet, modest, you didn't ruin the evening. That's how it should be. See, everyone liked it. I didn't answer. I just pressed my lips together so I wouldn't burst into tears. You should be grateful that I chose you. Another woman in your place would pray for a home like this. And in that moment, I understood. He doesn't just want me to be silent. He wants me not to exist. That night, I sat by the bathroom mirror and looked at my reflection for a long time. My eyes empty. My face alien. And then a thought flashed through my mind. He wants me to be silent. But I'll make him talk. In front of everyone. It was then that I decided, I will find a way to prove the truth. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I felt it, the end was approaching. And a few days later, I bought a small camera. That night after his birthday, I didn't sleep for a long time. His words swirled in my head like a broken record. Quiet, modest, you didn't ruin the evening. That's how it should be. I lay next to him, listening to him snore, and for the first time, I felt not fear, but cold determination. If I stay, he will break me completely. If I run away, he will find me. But if I gather evidence, if I show the world who he really is, then it won't be me who disappears, it will be him. The next morning, I went to an electronics store. The salesman, a young guy, smiled. A small camera for home videos? We have new models with motion sensors. I nodded. Yes, exactly what I need. For a home project. When I returned, a tiny camera, the size of a lighter, was in my bag. I hid it in the kitchen, among the recipe books. It only filmed when someone moved, and that was enough. That evening, Veer returned gloomy again. I could see he was irritated. His every movement, every word like a knife edge. Why is the house dark? Can you even turn on the light on time? I just thought you'd be late. You shouldn't think. You should obey. I stood by the stove and felt the fear gradually turn into calm. The camera was already working. When he pushed a plate off the table and grabbed my arm, for the first time, I didn't beg, I didn't cry. I only looked him in the eye. Quietly. Without a word. What? Silent again? Do you think that will save you? His voice became muffled. I don't want to fight, Veer, I replied, but without trembling. There was something new inside me, not fear, not pain, but certainty. I knew that this time, he was writing his own sentence. After the incident, I waited until he left for work and watched the recording for the first time. My heart pounded as I watched myself from the side, huddled, terrified, but alive. And then his face. His yelling. His hand. I cried watching it. But these were different tears, not of helplessness, but of realization. Now I have proof. The following days, I installed 2 more cameras, one in the hallway, another in the living room. He didn't even notice. He never suspected I was capable of anything like this. I behaved the same way as always, silent, submissive, convenient. And when he exploded again a few days later, this time because I forgot to iron a shirt, Everything was being filmed. He was yelling, hitting the table with his fist, grabbing my shoulders. And then, what I feared but knew would happen, the strike. I didn't run away this time. I didn't cry. I just calmly went to the bathroom, applied ice to my cheek, and dialed the police number on my phone. My hand was shaking, but I pressed call. When the patrol arrived, I stood by the door and, for the first time in a long time, didn't hide my face. I said, "I want to file a report." And I have video. At the police station, the officer, an older man, watched a few fragments and only sighed. "You did the right thing, Mrs. Lane. Most stay silent. But you're not like that." I was silent. Because for the first time, my silence was not weakness, but strength. When I filed the report, I was shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from the realization that I had finally taken a step he never expected. For the first time in several years, I acted alone, without permission, without fear of his reaction. The police said they would officially notify him. I understood a storm was coming. And it came. In the evening, he showed up at home not alone, his mother was with him. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, my hands clenched with tension. She started first. "Mia, what have you done? You've made my son look like a criminal. This is family. You don't air dirty laundry in public." I was silent. "He just snapped," she continued. "You know he has a difficult job. And you are a wife, your duty is to support, not to destroy." Veer stood next to her, his fists clenched, his eyes blazing with rage. "Delete that video, Mia. Drop the charges. We'll fix everything like before." Like before. I raised my eyes. "When you hit me, and they all laughed at the table?" His mother took a step forward. "Don't make things up, you provoke him yourself. A wife who is silent saves the family." And then, for the first time in all this time, I laughed. Not loudly, bitterly, barely audibly, but genuinely. "That's exactly what you did to me. You taught me to be silent. And now listen." I opened my laptop and pressed play. His screams filled the room. His voice. His words. His mother froze. Veer paled. The recording lasted less than a minute, but it was enough to make everything clear. "It's edited," he spat out. "Then tell that to the judge," I replied. He took a step towards me, but I raised my phone. "One more touch, and I'll call. I have a protection order." He froze. Then he turned and ran out, slamming the door. His mother stood there, silent for a few seconds, then hissed, "You ruined everything. But you will regret this someday." I already regretted it, I replied quietly. Every day I stayed silent. A few days later, his father called me. "Mia, there's no need for this publicity. You understand, people talk. Think about his reputation. Did you ever think about mine?" He fell silent. "No one will believe Veer could do such a thing. Then watch the news tomorrow." And I really did send the video to a lawyer who helped me file all the documents. The police confirmed the case was officially registered. After that, Veer's friends started calling. One said, "Mia, you're taking this too seriously." "Well, sometimes he's hot-headed. Just drop the charges, don't ruin his life." Another added, "You don't want the whole town to know, do you? It'll be a stain on you too." I was no longer afraid. I answered briefly, "If they find out, let them see what happens to those who stay silent." For a few weeks, I lived as if in the quiet after a storm. At first, I was scared that he would return, that someone would come, that everything would repeat itself. But then I felt a strange relief. I could go outside, just walk around, breathe the air, buy myself a coffee without thinking that I had to rush home. For the first time in 2 years, I sat on a bench and wasn't afraid to look people in the eyes. And then I understood, this is freedom. It doesn't begin with an escape, but with the moment you stop apologizing for someone else's cruelty. When the court summons arrived, I was no longer trembling. I gathered all the recordings, photos, certificates, every last detail. My lawyer said, "You have a perfect case, Mia. But be ready, he will try to play the victim." I only smiled. It's okay, I also learned to act, but now I have my own role. The day of the trial came on a cold morning, gray, sunless, but for the first time in a long time, I dressed not for someone else, but for myself. A light gray suit, simple hair, no makeup. I didn't want to look like a victim. I wanted to look like a survivor. When I entered the hall, Veer was already sitting next to his lawyer. His mother in the first row, in an expensive coat, with a face frozen between pride and horror. His friends also came, the same ones who once laughed at my obedience. Now they weren't laughing. They were watching. Veer looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw fear. He even tried to smile. "Mia, we don't have to do this. We can talk afterward," he whispered as I walked past. I didn't say anything, because words no longer meant anything. When the hearing began, his lawyer spoke first. "My client is an exemplary citizen, a responsible employee, and this case is the result of a misunderstanding and emotional stress in the family. Mrs. Lane, like many young women, has exaggerated the situation." I sat there, clenching my hands. Every word was like a slap. Exaggerated. Emotional. Misunderstood the situation. The same words I had heard for years. Then Veer stood up. His voice was quiet, almost touching. "I never meant her any harm. Yes, we argued. But who doesn't argue in a marriage? She's just too sensitive. I love her. I'm ready to fix everything. I only ask, don't ruin my life over one mistake." He even pretended to wipe a tear. And sympathetic sighs echoed in the hall. I saw the judge looking at me, waiting for a reaction. And I just calmly took out the flash drive. "I have evidence," I said. The judge nodded. I walked up to the screen, inserted the flash drive, and pressed play. Silence fell over the hall. On the screen, our home. The kitchen. My voice, quiet, calm. His voice, coarse, icy. "You shouldn't think. You should obey." Then the sound of the strike. Muffled, heavy. And my weeping. Someone in the hall turned away. Someone sighed. Veer's mother covered her mouth with her hand. The lawyer froze. "It's edited," he shouted, but his voice cracked. "The other video is another day," I said calmly. "And another one. And another." I showed 3 short excerpts, not long, not emotional, just the truth. Without words, without shouting. My silence was louder than any of his arguments. When the recording ended, you could hear a pen drop in the hall. The judge bowed his head. "Mrs. Lane, thank you. You may sit." Veer didn't speak anymore. He just stared off into space, his fists clenched. His mother tried to whisper something to him, but he waved her off. The judge read the decision, and I barely heard the words, only the echo in my head. Evidence confirms systematic abuse. Protective order, divorce granted. And that was it. My verdict, not to him, but to my past self. I was finally free. When we left the hall, Veer approached me. His voice was trembling. "Mia, please don't do this. We can start over. I've changed." I looked at him and felt nothing. No hatred, no anger. Just emptiness, in which there was finally room for peace. "You're right, Veer. You've changed. But now everyone sees it." He lowered his eyes. I walked past and didn't look back. Outside, I inhaled the air. Cold, fresh, real. And then I understood. I was alive again.